Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your host, Bob Gibbons, founder of Realty Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm. Bob will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons.
So what happens when you are growing up in Dallas in a family business and your dad has a stroke and can't continue the business? Well, our guest today is Daniel Ng, and Daniel's an interesting guy. I've known him for a long time, but he is the broker of EREI Realty, which is a residential real estate company. He's also the broker for Sperry CGA Invest, which is a commercial real estate brokerage. But then they also own buildings with TK Ng and Associates Investments Group and GE Management Company. And he was born in Dallas, but ended up going to college in Switzerland. That's pretty cool. I want to know more about that. Franklin College, Switzerland, and now Franklin University, Switzerland, with a degree in international banking and finance. And so he's been in the real estate business a long time. He's been on all kinds of boards and involved in the Asian Real Estate Association of America, Richardson Chamber of Commerce Board of Advisors, Grace Chinese Baptist Church, North Texas Commercial Association of Realtors. I could go on, but we need to get on to the show. Daniel, glad you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Bob.
Well, it's fun. So one thing about you that has always been very fascinating to me is that you are the most savvy, prolific social media guy I've ever met in the real estate business. And so I just want to start with that. So give me your sort of top tips for social media for people in the real estate business.
Well, I think it goes back to high school and college. I used to do a lot of photography and video in college. And, when I went to school in Switzerland, nobody was doing video and recording things. So, I bought a big Canon video camera. I started recording the trips that we went to and events, and I started selling tapes. So I actually had a
to your students, your buddies.
Yeah. So I started a small business and started selling tapes. I got in trouble with the school because I was using their logo, so I had to change some stuff. But they were okay with me selling tapes because I was the only one recording at the time. We didn't have the internet the way it is today. We didn't have Facebook at the time.
What year was this?
This was 98. I graduated from Plano East High School, and I went to Lugano, Switzerland in 98. So
wow,
I guess that was the start of the internet, kind of starting getting Yahoo emails and things like that. Google, I don't think started. Well, it probably started, but wasn't the way it is now.
Yeah, it was AOL back then.
Yes.
When you got the CDs, there were CDs everywhere that you'd load on your computer and then get the internet. So you're in Switzerland and you're creating these videos and I mean, how did you know how to edit?
I had to learn. My brother Parker was a big help because he was also interested in video editing. So, we were doing Adobe Premiere. It took a long time to render those videos. I remember he shipped some computers over. We had to put it together, and it was I had my little dorm had 2 monitors. And it was packed.
So was your brother over there in school too?
No. He just came over to visit and help me out.
Wow. So now, did you also sell it to the parents?
Yes, that was the main thing. Was parents were buying because the kids wanted it, so the parents would buy it, and they would pay cash. And I don't think I paid taxes in Switzerland for those.
Well,
come to think about it,
we might not. We might want to edit that part out. Well, it's funny because my daughter went to college in Europe in Italy for a year, and so but by that time that was like 2011. So by that time, internet was big time. It was real easy. You could do it on your phones.
Correct. We didn't have the GPS. We didn't have the smartphones, and everything was before a trip was opening a Mapsico type book and mapping out where you're going and pre-planning everything. So
Wow. So where do you have all those videos now?
I have them in disc. I'm trying to. One of my projects is one day to get them onto YouTube and stuff, and also share the links later.
I mean, that'd be kind of a cool thing for your alumni association to have all those in a place where they can all go see them.
Correct. Since they paid for it already, right? So I could share it for free
now.
Now
you're
on
going to give it to them for free. Well, there's so much time that's passed, so it's they wouldn't. I'm sure they'd be happy with that. But so you've continued this though. So you continue to use video a great deal in your business.
Yes.
And in your personal life, I assume as well. So I know you travel internationally a lot. And, I know more about you because of what I see on Facebook than from spending time with you.
Well, Facebook's been a great tool. I mean, with the Facebook Live, the videos, it's just easy to share certain things. I mean, people don't have to see it if they don't want to.
Right.
But if they want to, they can. So.
And you share some pretty personal stuff as well.
Yes.
So you're kind of living your business, living your life and there's really no distinction between those two. It seems.
Correct. I mean, my business. I grew up in the business. My father and my parents started the real estate business before I was born, and I kind of grew up in that, watching him pour concrete, stepping in the concrete. My brothers would paint parking lot, stripe the parking lot, and I would mess up with the paint and play with it when I was a kid because my brothers were 10 years older than me. So just seeing it and understanding it from the ground up, and that I've always had a passion for real estate. I've always had a passion seeing my father help people in the church and just different things. And my father had a severe stroke back in 2006, and then from that had a divorce in 2007. So a lot of things in my life during that time, I had to kind of reorganize myself. And back in 2008, I started taking more classes to improve myself through CCIM and also getting my CPM certification for property management, and met a lot of great people during that time.
Yeah.
So
let's kind of go back in time then.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come out of college in Switzerland, you have an international degree in business and finance,
Yes.
I think it was, or banking and
Banking
finance.
and finance, correct.
So was your plan to just go into the real estate business with the family, or was your plan to do something else?
The plan was to go into the real estate with family. I've spent 3 years in Europe for my studies, and then it was supposed to be a semester abroad, and I convinced the family I can try to finish in 3 years. But the goal was to do real estate.
Okay.
So I had my business cards, I think, when I was 15, 16 years old. My dad gave me business cards, and I would talk to people in high school about real estate as well. And I started my real estate license my senior year in high school when I turned 18.
Okay. Because you can't get a license until you're 18.
Correct.
So you're 18 years old, you're getting your license, but then you immediately go to Switzerland for 3 years.
Yep.
And when you get out of college, then you come back to Dallas and
I came back to
join
Dallas.
the family business.
Yes. Well, because our commercial properties are all here in Dallas, so we're kind of married to Dallas. Throughout the years, people ask like, "Well, why do you stay in Dallas?" Well, the assets are here. You need to take care of it. My parents came from. My mother was born in China in a small, poor village, and eventually went to Hong Kong when she was young and was able to come to the U.S. My father came when he was 18 to study. He was on a boat, came through. He had friends in the first class, I guess, part of the boat, but he was on the third class part of the boat.
Oh, wow.
And but from that, he had the opportunity to get a full scholarship to Kansas in a small college in Tabor College. And then from that, went to Houston, and then later on found roots in Dallas, and that's where I was born.
So how did he get started in the real estate business?
I think back in Houston, he did some small apartments. He had a grocery store. He had restaurants. My father's an entrepreneur. He met my mom at the church. He was a choir director and a piano teacher. And then after they got married, they had kids. And he's like, well, I can't make a living supporting the family. So he started a small business. Later on, flipping some homes, got into the insurance. So he did a lot of things.
Wow.
I can't imagine all the stuff that he's gone through and the cycles of that they've gone through. He even opened he sold everything, went to Florida for a few years, and then we had the oil embargo, so that kind of killed all the business in Panama City. He didn't want to go back to Houston to lose face with my mom's family, so he came up to Dallas and started from the ground up again. So,
Wow, that's impressive that he was able to keep doing that in a different industries,
Yeah.
even. So, so you get back you come back and join the family business. At that point, what did the family business look like? Was it only owning the properties and managing what you owned only?
So we still had some partnerships my parents that had, and then my first deal came from a LoopNet deal. So when I first came on, I started creating a website, getting that stuff, those things for the family. So I created a website, joined LoopNet back in 2001 when I graduated, and then first deal was a Pizza Hut deal, triple net deal that we bought. And then another deal was a group of 10 people that I raised money together, and we purchased the property. We still own the property, and it was a $500,000 raise, but it was a $2 million project. So I was able to get financed, and from that, just kind of continuing. So after doing those deals and doing the leasing, doing the management, we had to do everything. When you own a property and you manage the property and you have to do the construction, so we had to do everything.
Yeah, the nice thing about that is that you got to know everything from the ground up.
Correct.
And I started off in property management and leasing of not of my own properties, but of other people's properties, and it really makes you a better able to serve other customers later. So now that I represent companies only and their leasing decisions, I'm a tenant rep only. I don't own any properties or represent any properties. I feel like I can represent them better because of that experience of 20 years working for landlords. So you're getting every aspect possible as you're learning all this from the ground up. And it's it's kind of like my wife grew up in the insurance business, and she started off emptying the trash in the office, right?
Yep.
And then she moved up, and ultimately she's the commercial lines manager with the family business as well. But well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about how that grew into other aspects of the industry.
Okay.
Be right back.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back, and we are talking to Daniel Ng, and Daniel's with Ingvest. And Daniel, I didn't ask you this at the beginning, but what are the best websites for people to find you?
My main commercial real estate website is ingvest.com, engvest.com.
Okay.
It's kind of a pun on words because we do commercial real estate investments. My last name is Ng, so my brother and I came up with that, and we've made a website.
And was that the name you came up with from the very beginning?
Correct. So we started Ingvest, back because it was under my father's company's name, and that had a lot of partnerships. So I created the company to separate the entity and just to focus Ingvest as more of a servicing real estate company, full service brokerage.
Okay, so your dad was really more focused on what he was owning and what he was owning through his partnerships with other investors, but
Correct.
You really started with a different view, providing services for other people as well.
Correct.
As that. And so how did your dad like that? Did he care? Did he think it was a good idea?
No, because my father already had his stroke.
Okay.
I separated the company names just for marketing purposes and also for liability, right? In this
Okay.
real estate industry, if you own stuff and you mingle, names and things like that. So I created it to separate the liability from family assets. So, if for some reason, if something happened to Ingvest, it would not touch the family assets.
So your dad had already had the stroke when you started doing all that. Tell me about when he had the stroke. Were you and your brothers working in the company at that point, or just yourself?
Yes, we're both.
All of them. Okay. So, and how did that? Obviously, a stroke is not something you plan for.
Yeah.
So, walk us through how that traumatic event.
So
changed things.
So I purchased a flat in China, but it wasn't built yet. It wasn't finished. So he went back in the summer, and to help me basically sign all the documents, because it was a retirement home for my parents, And so he went back, and all of a sudden I get a call from one of my relatives and said my dad had a stroke. They
While
said,
he's in China.
yeah, but they said coma in Chinese, and I was freaking out, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I need to get on a plane now. So the next day I flew back to Hong Kong, but I need a Chinese visa, so I had to go to the Chinese embassy in Hong Kong to get my Chinese visa. So I had to wait another day and rush up to China. It was just across the border. It was just I was only 45 minutes away, but I couldn't get there.
Yeah.
And what was going through my mind is like, my dad. He was my mentor. He was everything to me. And I mean, he because I'm the youngest, and I was so far. I guess his business has already started, so he had a little bit more time with me compared to my brothers. And I know my brothers, had to go through the restaurant periods with my parents and just the down cycle in the 80s. So a lot of things. And my dad spent a lot of time with me growing up, taking me back to Hong Kong. So a lot of things in my mind were like, what am I going to do? And I had a young child at the time, my daughter, and then from that, so went back. He was in the hospital for 3 months. We moved him. We had an ambulance move him down to Hong Kong, so he stayed in the hospital for 3 months, and he was a pretty severe stroke. And then I think my uncle from Austria, he's a heart surgeon, but he flew in right away, knew the people at the hospital, was able to give him great care and just gotta give him better treatment. So he's able to. He understands everything. He's not fully recovered. He still has paralysis, but today he's able to see his grandkids and his mother. My grandmother is 103. We moved her back from Hong Kong, and she had a mini stroke. And we told Grandma, Grandma, we never had to take care of you your whole life. And I said, why don't you come back? And I was able to get her visa, and she has a green card, and so she came back. We were worried about U.S. Customs because she was 100, and they wanted to shake her hand. So when we landed in the U.S. at the DFW airport, they shook her hand, and she was happy. So
that's amazing. Wow. So your dad's not fully recovered. You now have your grandmother,
Yes.
who's 103, living here as well. Boy, you have a real extended family going on here. That's cool. We don't see that as much here
Yes.
in the U.S.
So 4
as we should.
generations, and it's a blessing. I guess there's a Chinese proverb, I can't remember the word, but it's a blessing to have 4 generations sit at dinner together every week on Sundays. That's kind of when we meet and with the family and just kind of hang out and just be there.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. My wife's father's 94, so we spend most Saturdays with him right now, but we don't have the 4th generation yet. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm going to have a 4th generation. We'll see. So from a business perspective, when your dad has a stroke, I mean, did you already have the business set up to where you had control and you could, or was...
Well, I think, and managing the assets, I mean, everything is some is in family trust, some is limited partnerships. My mom, my mother has her own company as the management. So her company manages the properties.
So that's the GE management?
That's the GE management.
Okay.
Glory Ng. GE has sent a letter back in the 80s.
Really?
They haven't bothered her since. Maybe it's too small.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be real easy to confuse GE with GE management. That's crazy.
But that's her name, so that's her initials, so she's using it. But, Mom has always been the behind-the-scenes person. My dad has always been the face of the company, but Mom has always been there to support the accounting. My wife, Stephanie, now actually handles all the accounting, has really took over that role, and I'm blessed to have Stephanie do that and really take care of that. I don't know if she feels blessed because she has to deal with all this work. She didn't know what she was getting into when I got remarried. So
and that's some seriously complex accounting too, because when you have all these different partnerships and all these different ownership entities for all the buildings, plus now you have the other companies, that gets to be pretty daunting.
Yes.
To deal with all that.
So.
Well, interesting. So, are both your brothers still involved in the business?
Parker, my second brother, he's involved with the business, and also he has his own residential real estate company with his wife. So they're like a team. And my oldest brother passed away from cancer almost 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He wasn't in the business, but he was battling that. So Parker kind of took 2 years off to kind of really care for my older brother Norman, and just kind of, give him whatever treatment or whatever help he needed.
Sure. So you guys have the Ingvest where you're raising money and buying buildings. You have TK Ing and Associates, which is what your dad had created. But now you have the other companies, the Realty
Yes.
and the Sperry. So tell us, how did those develop? How did you decide you wanted to do those as well?
So, after going to CCIM, I met a lot of different entrepreneurs, and, KW, Keller Williams, started their commercial division, and, Mac McClure, one of my instructors, asked me, like, hey, why don't you join KW Commercial with your Invest and kind of help the market center, help train those residential agents or to learn about commercial. So that was interesting. I was like, okay, well, I don't mind helping people, and that's how it kind of started. And volunteering with my through the Asian Real Estate Association, I met my other two partners that were doing residential real estate, and they were both at KW. So, well, maybe we can team up somehow, and that's how we kind of teamed up for a year. And then later on, like, well, maybe we can form a company, a residential real estate company, where I'm the commercial guy that can kind of support if the agents needed it. So that's how we started. I mean, we didn't know how big it would grow. We never thought about franchising. But that was, that's how we started the iRealty. At that time, it was DFW iRealty. Now it's ERA iRealty, and it's franchised through ERA, which they approached us as we were kind of a niche in that brand.
So ERA already was franchising and was an established name. What was it that they saw in iRealty that they needed?
I think the global aspect, because my residential real estate office is heavily Asian American. We focus a lot, not focus. I think primarily 50% of our business are foreign nationals from overseas, and I think they saw a niche because ERA actually globally is a large has a large presence in Asia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, this summer, going back, I went to ERA Japan, went to their conference, and for me, I like to link the groups together, and not just with Dallas. We have great ERA offices in Florida that does property management and rentals. So I can connect the investors from overseas on the residential side over there. Mm-hmm. So things like that. So that's what I'm working on. I guess I found a niche. I enjoy connecting people, and then I like seeing deals happening that way. And, with the residential side, I have about close to 40 people on the residential, and I see my agents grow, and I enjoy that. For me, it's not about the monetary success. It's more about, their success because they're feeding their families. My parents worked really hard where, my parents laid the foundation. My father always said, here's the foundation, sons. You can just sit on it, but don't take it apart. Yeah. One thing, or you can build something on it. So I've always looked at those are opportunities where I can continue building on the foundation that my parents worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And sacrificed a lot of time and saved a lot of money, with the restaurants and the downturn in the 80s and, the 90s. They had, stuff going on as well. But, that's always been my goal, is to try to focus on helping people and giving back.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting the way you take an association, a trade association, and through your relationships build a new business out of it, a new aspect of it, and then ERA shows up. Yes. I love that, and so the iRealty piece of it is what they're also franchising now. And when they franchise that, is that still primarily focused on the Asian market in other parts of the country?
Yeah. So I mean, the I really stands for it means a lot of things. It could be international, integrity. Intelligence, or like iPhone, but
okay. Well, we'll let me stop you there for a second. We got to take another quick break.
All
we'll
right.
be right back.
No problem.
Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Realty Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts when you negotiate for that renewal option. Why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com.
We're back with Daniel Ing, and he's with Ingvest and ERA, iRealty, and Sperry CGA, Ingvest, and I'm just going to stop there. But you can go to Ingvest, ENGVEST.com to learn more about Daniel. So Daniel, we were talking about the residential real estate company, and we hadn't really touched on the commercial real estate company yet. But why have one of each instead of one that does both?
Well, having partnerships and the focus on the residential is because the residential and commercial it doesn't mix well. It's two different animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I created that company with partners, so I said, well, that's the residential division, and we'll keep it that separate, And, through the Asian Real Estate Association, I met Jim Wong, which is the president for Sperry CGA,
Mm-hmm.
and this created opportunity for my partner and I, Calvin, and I, to franchise with Sperry. We needed something as a small brokerage, a local brokerage. We were happy. But we needed something, a global aspect. And, we were the first affiliates for Sperry CGA.
Okay.
Rand Sperry, which is the CEO, used to own Sperry Van Ness.
Yeah.
He sold that off. And so we call ourselves Sperry 2.0. So, it's really the franchising or having any affiliation is really just to help collaborate with other brokers around the country, now the globe, as the world is getting smaller, and we felt that it was the next step for our business to grow.
Yeah.
Both franchises, it was just the next step.
And keeping those separate, let people stay focused on what they
Correct.
really were good at.
Right.
Interesting.
Because like me, I'm not focused because I have so many different companies.
I was going to say, I don't know how you stay focused at all. We'll get to that in a little while. And so what's the CGA mean?
So it means Sperry Commercial Global Affiliates.
Ah, okay.
So,
Okay. And so it's like a network that you can pull on from
Correct.
anywhere around the world.
if I need to raise more money, so or if other brokers have deals together, we can syndicate deals together, or I can diversify my funds to say Alabama. We have a broker down in Alabama. They have cap rates a little higher than here in Dallas, and it works, and they manage it. So, I have the opportunity to diversify, family funds if I wanted to in different markets of the country.
Interesting.
So,
I'm a member of a international association of purely tenant rep firms
Mhm.
like my own, and you can't manage any properties, you can't represent any buildings for lease for landlords. It's strictly so it's it's specialization, and of course
Yep.
in commercial real estate there's a high degree of specialization, and so that's worked for me. And so somebody has a client in some other part of the country or the world, then they can they have an opportunity in Dallas, they can refer to me. We'll work the deal together, and it just makes a lot of sense. So I think it's good that you're leveraging that kind of diversity in geographically, so that you can better serve your client.
yeah, I mean, it was something for, I talked to my partner Calvin on the commercial side, like, this, if we did this, he would need to run it and kind of grow it. And it was really helping my business partner Calvin establish something because he didn't have the foundation like I did,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, but I knew his work ethics. I knew that he was capable, and I know that he needed something to kind of have that foundation for. So we felt like, applying what I have already plus adding another thing together, he would be able to excel. And we've seen him excel in the business. He's top 5 broker in the nation for Sperry CGA, and
Nice.
he's reaching number 1. That's his goal. So anything I can help him with.
Well, I will put a plug in for you guys because, as a purely tenant rep, I see all kinds of landlords, and there are good landlords and there are bad landlords. And, I just yesterday, I had a situation where a client's interested in a building, and that particular owner of that building refused to send me a commission agreement. And, even though I have an agreement with my client to represent them, that doesn't mean that I have an agreement with the landlord to actually get paid if they
Yes.
end up leasing there. And so the fact that this guy wasn't willing to sign a commission agreement right now was a huge red flag.
Yes.
And I knew I needed to worry about this. And so I'm taking some steps to deal with that. The flip side to that are the great landlords. And you may probably remember, may not remember, I had a very small little tenant that I was trying to help out one time. And I called Calvin to ask about one of your buildings. And then this client, for some reason, kind of went around me and went and did the deal with Calvin. And Calvin didn't even know the name of the client.
Okay.
I had never told him the name of the client. But then Calvin followed up with me and said, hey, did whatever happened with that tenant? And I was like, well, they kind of went around me and just went and did their own deal. And he's like, was the name? And he gave me the name of the tenant. I was like, yeah, that's the name. He said, they ended up leasing in my building, but they didn't tell me they were working with you. Yeah. And I said, well, that's because they had already decided to go rogue and go on their own at that point. And he sent me a commission anyway. And I was like, Calvin, you don't need to do that. That is not at all reasonable for you to have to do that. I certainly don't expect it. He sent it anyway. But the goodwill that created, I mean, I'll go out of my way to find an opportunity to show your buildings now. Not that, a client's still going to have to
Correct.
pick it. I mean, we still have to do what's right for the client. But obviously I have a much, much higher perception and value in you guys because you're really trying to build relationships. So everything you've been talking about relationships really is true.
So, going back to things like that, I know, the family had operated the business a little bit different before I started the business. We were burned by brokers before, so my mom was always guarded on, commissions and how much she's giving out or, now we got up to the speed of what the market is. So if you want a good tenant, you need to be represented by a broker. Before you have some owners like, well, I don't. If there's a commission, I'm going to raise the rents or something.
Yeah.
I had to educate them. You can't do that. If you want to continue the business and not have a bad name, I'm not saying they had a bad name,
Right.
but I know that there were bad brokers too.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Without a doubt.
So, there's always different clauses like, hey, we would either do, that's why my mom doesn't like to sign a 10-year lease because the tenant may not stay 10 years and
Right.
they pay a 10-year commission. But I said, then I had to negotiate that with mom a lot of the times. I still do sometimes. So, but, things like that, I know Calvin, ethically, he's, would do that. I would do the same thing. There are times where, if a tenant wasn't represented or it's just someone called a sign and then like that broker's like, oh, I represent him now because he's calling around.
Right.
Then I said, well, he's just calling around and you're trying to claim him or claim that person. But if they're working the deal and really trying to help and help follow up, then yes. So, but I'm glad that, Calvin did the right thing and,
Well, he did more than the right thing. He did the exceptional thing. Yeah, doing the right thing is just what you expect and what they should do. But doing the exceptional thing is something that really stands out. So that was pretty cool. So tell me, what are some of the we've talked about the associations, and you're a member of a few different associations, and they all seem to be fairly focused on the Asian community in the U.S. Why is that important to you? I mean, obviously, I know a lot of your clients are Asian, and a lot of your agents are Asian. But tell me more about that. How do you use that?
I mean, if you look at it, so my mother was born in China, but my great grandfather actually was in the U.S. Back in the 1800s. So
Wow.
he, also helped with the railroad systems in the
Mhm.
U.S., sent money back to China for the family and things like that. But I'm kind of a fourth generation Asian American, but
Mhm.
not fully because my father was born in Hong Kong. But just being as a minority Asian American citizen here in the U.S., I don't feel the pressure that my parents did during their generation. And when I joined the Asian Real Estate Association, I saw certain things that that immigrants had to go through, and they still have to go through. So the association is really about the American dream, owning a home, right? That's the primary focus. Is how do we get our immigrants to start building credit, because our credit system is about score and getting a credit card, things like that, but which they don't understand. So we have to educate them what to do or change policy, right? So in May every year, we go to DC. We try to lobby certain things about maybe trying to affect doing another way of getting credit or getting approved for a loan, because that's also the backbone of America is owning a home.
Right.
So real estate is the the core economy of this
Yeah.
country.
So when you're in these associations, though, so it's lobbying, it's trying to change policy, education, that kind of thing. But you're also members of non-Asian
correct. So
organizations.
like I'm a director for CCIM for our local chapter here in Dallas Fort Worth. Also on the board for North Texas Association of Realtors. So I get to network with other business like-minded people, and also just trying to learn from them as well, what they're doing in their business, even though they're from a different company. But there's a lot of people, because the commercial real estate industry is small. If you do something wrong or a landlord does something wrong, everyone knows about it.
Yeah, because we all tell each other.
Yes. So I mean, and I thank George Tanghongs during my early years to kind of show me the ropes after my father had a stroke, and kind of introducing me to different owners, because before it was basically taking care of my own properties. I didn't have that mindset of servicing, but he kind of pioneered that in my mind of like doing more servicing, doing more tenant rep. So that's where we, kind of started that.
Yeah, George is a good guy. He's with Lee and Associates, and
Right.
I deal with him whenever I have a client that needs an
Yeah.
industrial building, and I don't think we've ever closed the deal, but hopefully that will happen.
All
All right, we're going to take a quick last break, and we'll be right back.
All right.
All right, we're back with Daniel Ng. So Daniel, there's a lot of people that want to get into the real estate business, and they think that they're going to make a ton of money.
Correct.
They see a commission on a deal, and they think, oh, I got to get me one of those. If I only do 20 of those a year, I'm going to make, $1 million, whatever. What is your advice for somebody that says, I want to be in real estate? And let's kind of bifurcate this, residential versus commercial. What's your advice to them?
Well, I think if you're thinking about getting into real estate, you got to figure out what niche you're going to be. If you're going to go residential, you should find a company that has good training, a broker that's willing to be there, kind of handhold you through the process. Same thing with the commercial. Commercial is going to take a little longer, just because building up your leads, because it's not buying a single home. You're buying investment for someone, or you're doing tenant rep. There's a lot of things, like if you don't know what the cost of a restaurant would, grease traps, vent hoods, plumbing, all these things, these jargons, it's really going to be hard for you to really negotiate for your clients. So you need to find a company that's willing to train you and has the time. There are a lot of great companies out there, but do they have the time to really focus on the new guys coming in, or the new agents?
Mm-hmm.
So I think education, once you get your license, I think, continue to get more education, get certified throughout your career. So.
And, I know one thing on residential is that once you have a property under contract, it closes pretty quickly, usually 30, 60 days.
Right.
Commercial, not so much.
Commercial could take a year, 2 years, 6 months.
Yeah.
Every deal on a commercial, it varies. The contracts are all different. tenant rep, maybe if you're able to use your NAT car leases, great.
Yeah, but
if you're
that's
not,
rare.
That's very rare. So,
Yeah, standard forms in commercial, well, I'm sorry, in residential, standard forms are
yes,
the
very
most.
common.
I mean, that is like 90% of the deals, 95% of the deals.
Yes.
In commercial, they're like 5% of the deals,
Correct.
maybe 10 at the most, but I would say more like 5. I rarely see anybody use a Texas Association of Realtors or North Texas Commercial Association of Realtors standardized form. I love it when they do, but not often.
Not often, yes.
So, what do you talk whenever you're talking to people about how they? I mean, this is a commission-only business for the
Yes.
most part, right? I mean, do any of your employees, or not employees, your agents, I should say? I mean, that they're commission-only. So, how long do you tell them they need to have money in the bank to carry them before they're going to start making them?
So
Getting money.
when I interview them, I always ask them like what other income is coming in. If they're married, if their spouse has a solid job, then that also plays into how long and how hungry they are too, right? So if an
Yeah.
agent comes in and they're by themselves, they have no other income, then I said, well, you're going to be struggling for the residential side at least 6 months before you see anything. Commercial, you need, I think we tell them 2 years to really grasp what they're gonna like, because they're gonna be, for us, when an agent comes on our commercial side, we have projects for them to kind of do landlord rep.
Yeah, some project leasing.
So some project leasing they can do, so that kind of gives them a little bit base on the commission. But then they really need to figure out what their niche is. So, a couple of my agents, they focus on restaurants right now. So they're doing a lot of tenant rep deals on restaurants. And I said, well, you need to learn construction a little bit to understand what things cost. Then you can negotiate with the landlord and just be more of to specialize. So I think commercial, you need to figure out your niche and specialize. Just like you specialize in tenant rep, that's all you do.
Yeah.
So, if I have a space, sometimes I call you, I got this space, what can you find me?
Yeah.
Who can you find me for?
Well, and even more specialized is I only really focus on office buildings
Right.
and warehouse. In some moments of bad judgment, I've taken retail clients, and we've talked about that in some of your properties. But I try to avoid retail because retail is not a good place for a tenant rep to be, because landlords in retail centers don't pay renewal
Correct.
commissions. So I don't want to build a book of business of a bunch of one-off deals. I want to have.
So that's why any agent needs to figure out when they're getting into a certain niche, they need to know the consequences. If they do retail, they're not going to get the renewal.
Yeah.
So they got to continue. So there's different things. So they have to figure out what they're going to do first.
Okay.
So,
So once they know what they're going to do, they're going to pick residential, they're going to pick commercial. Then they got to find the brokerage that's going to give them the training you talked about,
correct.
and then they actually have to do it. But
Yeah.
even once they're into that brokerage, there's only so much that brokerage company can do with an individual. There's got to be a fair amount of self-motivation and
Yes.
internal.
I mean, it's a sales business, and you have to have
Yeah.
your drive, and you have to. It's not, and I think the drive can't be just money. I think the drive needs to be, especially on the residential side, is about helping homeowners buy their first home, their most expensive investment they're gonna make.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell my agents, that you need to have that passion to sell a home, because it's not selling, you're actually advising them.
That's a better word.
You're advising them on what to purchase, and because that's an investment also for
Yeah.
them. And if they need to sell, because there's always different scenarios why people have to sell, whether they're downsizing, or there's a death, or they need to go. They have kids, they need a bigger home. So you're always there advising
Yeah.
them what to do. So
Interesting.
we're always advising on the commercial side. It's a little less emotions. If you're dealing with bigger companies where it's just like, I need numbers. What's my cap rate? What's my return?
Yeah.
What's my exit strategy? And that's where I kind of shied a little away over the years on just pure investments or putting partnerships together, because it was about money. It's about what returns, where's my report. Whereas, I felt like my passion was helping agents kind of grow their business. So that's where I've kind of shifted, when I first started till now, And I think in the future, that's kind of the same thing as my passion is to kind of help grow the agent's business wherever I can, because I have the opportunity. I feel like I can give back that way. And at the same time is continue my family business by, purchasing a property, 1 or 2 a year, and then continue to grow that. And then hopefully educating my kids to know how to maintain the properties, because, one day I'm not going to be here and somebody has to, or they're going to sell it off.
And you think that they're going to come into the business with you?
I hope. I have 3 kids now. We lost one. I would have 4, but we lost one 3 years ago. But I'm hoping one of the 3 will pick it up. My oldest daughter doesn't seem she likes interested in real estate, but my son, I think he's okay. I think he has mama's brain, so mama's CPA. So I think he might be able to kind of handle certain things. And my youngest, is the newborn. She's a year now, and we'll see. She's a character.
A little early to tell, you think?
I don't know. She's a character. So some people say she kind of looks like my grandmother, which was an entrepreneur as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see.
So whenever you're trying to bring somebody on as an agent and in your residential or commercial, and you were saying they have to have the drive, how do you know they have the drive? I mean, what do you do to put them through their paces, so to speak, to minimize the risk of bringing on somebody and spending all that time training them, and then they turn out to really just be an order taker and not somebody that's going to go out and hunt? I
think when we interview, we kind of figure out if they're part-time or not. So we do have some part-time agents, which is fine, on the residential side, but on the commercial, they have to be full-time, no other things. It has to be focused, because Calvin's spending a lot of time, training, following, and getting deals done, because,
So if they're not all in, forget it.
We forget.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a big mistake, because they're not. I mean, I had a guy who was finishing up his, before he retired, and he was going to work with us part-time while he did that sort of part-time. Yeah. And it was a mistake, and he never really turned out to do anything.
Because the part-times will give you headaches, because when things come about, because they're not educated, they don't come to training, then it might cause issues down the line. Yeah. That's where it's going to take more of your time. Yeah. So you just have to know what their drive is. Some of them are doing their own investments, so they want to get their real estate license, and that's why I call they're the part-timers, that they're doing their own investments. But we keep track with them, not by physical training, but we have things that we text them and we talk to them, since we know they're not there.
Right.
But as the company grows, we got to figure out how to manage that too. Right now we're at 40, in a year or two, maybe at 80, but that's why I have good partners. Yeah. Kelly and Trang and Judy kind of run the residential. We're all four of us are brokers, but I'm the broker of record, but that means I have the liability.
Yeah, you do.
But they handle a lot of that, and if I didn't have them, I don't think I would have the companies. If I didn't have Calvin, I don't think I would franchise with Sperry CGA either. Okay. Because you need to have good partners to help run and also have that vision together. And you can't be too greedy. So because once people get too greedy, it won't work.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. What do you see the risks or challenges in the future in the real estate brokerage industry?
Developers make money when they can sell the property off. But it's cyclical, right? We know this business there's a cycle, and depending when you're getting in. So
what about these hybrid companies where they're, the limited service, like Door, we had Alex Drouet on the show. Yes. Mm-hmm. Some of these other sort of internet activated companies that are trying to do things differently. Do you see those as being significant competition?
Well, they do affect the market. They're disruptors, what we call, but they also, they're testing out certain new things, right? And we always need those because we learn from what they're doing, and we can take what they failed on. Mm-hmm. and learn because they're spending the money, right? One of Simon Chen, the CEO for ERA, says we're watching them, we're seeing what fails, what works, and we'll let them spend the money on that.
Yeah.
and then they'll take certain things to apply it through the real estate. Yeah, so I think just these disruptors are coming in. We just need to watch over them, learn from them, and see what works and apply it to your business.
Very good. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show today. Listeners, please go to ingvest.com to learn more. Go to thenextlevelshow.com. We have a new website, so check it out. Be back next week with another great guest.
All right, thank you, Bob.